Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and the Airborne squad have begun to truly awaken. Colorization has manifested within the nefarious leader of the flying trio, the Eliminator named Screecher. His paperwork features the same CAUTION sheet as the Awakening version, but his instructions have got a cool new chapter of the Night Morpher comic, showcasing the Airborne squad and revealing Cyclops' truly insidious scheme. You can check it out in full on Mastermind Creations' Facebook page. Since the Awakening version's review covered the sculpt in detail, I'm going to focus more so on the color work of the airplane mode on Screecher. It's very G1 Starscream. The palette looks spot on to me, with the addition of pale brass detailing painted on sparingly. The gray is actually the same plastic tone as the Awakening version. Paint apps in general are very clean, particularly the red striping on the upper wings. Lots of the red and blue color is actually done on the plastic level, with a really attractive metallic polymer that shimmers in a subtle way. Finally, the cockpit windows are done in a gradiented paint app that looks almost pearlescent in proper lighting. Now that Annihilator's arrived in my eastern location, I can show you that the Airborne squad's landing gear can also slot into the Night Morpher railroad track. There's a lot of wiggle room sideways, since these Eliminators have much thinner wheels than Annihilator. Forward and backward, there's like no wiggle room. I need more than 2 pieces of track! Also, the mysterious peg on the front of Screecher's alt mode fits into Annihilator's coupling so he can pull some jets along on the ground. You do need to futz with Screecher's feet to make the pair fit together happily. I dig this feature as it finally gives some expanded functionality to that part of the original Night Morpher Commander design. Furthermore, there are 2 little flip-out pegs in Screecher's kneecaps that match up with some ports on the bottom of his toes. Why would his toes ever plug into his knees? Pilates. But more practically, this allows for any Airborne Squad redecos to connect to one another for track-based transport. Eventually, you'll be able to link up the 3 aerial Eliminators and have them pulled by Annihilator. And in the perfect future, you'll be able to link up a few hundred members of the Crow Battalion and have the craziest Onyx train ever.
Rejoice, primitive flesh creatures! Your new ruler has arrived. Bow before Lord Screecher, or face elimination.
Screecher's paint app placement is as Starscream as all get out. It follows the classic palette quite closely. In fact, I find that I wish it deviated a little bit so there might be some extra detail breaking up the red sections on his pelvis, but that may just be my rivet fixation talking. Thanks to the pale brass and his gentleman's silhouette, this guy's got a very regal look going on. Screecher introduces one new piece of molding in his unique, smirking face sculpt. It's sinister and sneering, befitting the character to a T. If you can get his eyes light-piped up, the visual effect is chilling. Unlike the Awakening version, Screecher only includes 1 pair of firearms, the Gatling guns. I really wish these had received some sort of paint application, even just a bit of gunmetal gray on the barrels. As it is, they're identical to the Awakening version's Gatling guns, and come off a bit bland with the rest of the figure being colored in. The guns remain removable, or twin-mountable to one forearm, or connectable into a handheld weapon. While the huge playability of having all 3 weapon pairings is obviously not present, you still get a small number of options for play value. The heavy play value comes from something I've dubbed the Wing Sword Gimmick Suite. First off, as I'd shown you in the Awakening version's review, the hip skirt pieces can come off and be used as melee weapons. They can also be combined into a twin-bladed weapon that can swirl up a stormy hurricane if Screecher feels outnumbered. However, let's look to bigger and better things. Secret things I may have avoided mentioning last month. You see, there's another reason for this design's main wings to be removable outside of safer shipping in the package. There's a fold-out handle on each wing piece that transforms them into giant, ludicrous robot swords, with propellers on the edge of their bat-like blades. Full disclosure, it's a bit tricky posing this guy when he's holding these. He can grip them decently, but his wrists do need to be bent slightly, and the swords may swivel around in his hands if gravity decides to meddle with them. Does it look a bit silly? Maybe, but it also looks capital A awesome and capital C crazy. And as a huge bonus to fans of the character, this Easter egg feature offers a great homage to Armada Starscream's iconic wingblade weapon. Finally, both wing swords and both hip skirt blades can be fully united into something that looks kind of like a shield, since there's a gap to allow Screecher to fire his Gatling gun from behind it. But honestly, it's a giant steampunk shuriken, and I do mean capital G giant. The connection points can be quite finicky to clip together, and take care while doing so, since they're surrounded by some of the pointiest parts of the toy. And if you were put off by the giant wing swords, this thing is about twice as insane. Myself, I love its delivery for being not only eccentric, but pretty effectively done. Screecher can wield this thing in a number of poses without falling down, which is quite a feat given how much it should unbalance him. I also love it for being a giant ludicrous robot shuriken. And most of all, I adore that this feature was literally hidden within the toy's documented gimmicks and shipping options. The only clues were the strange ports inside the mounting areas of the wings. It's staring you in the face, but you'd never notice it unless you were looking for it. Many kudos to the Mastermind Creations designers for so clearly having as much fun as they could with parts that could have remained mostly decorative at best. Screecher's final big addition is a sprue of blue screw plugs. You get 44 in total, which are more than enough to fill in Screecher's exposed screws and rivets. They match the blue of his forearms really well, since they're pretty much the same plastic, but may look a bit odd against the gray of his wings. Of course, you can easily paint these up if you want to. Installation's not mandatory, of course, it's just an aesthetic choice, but I'm glad that the option is available. Unless something somehow goes wrong with Stormer and Warper's construction, Screecher proves to me that the higher number, fully colored production run of the Airborne Squad design is a real winner. Provided you actually like the line art that it's emulating. Physically, I believe this is the strongest piece Mastermind Creations has released to date. Where Cyclops pushed the tolerances of its plastic to their limits, Screecher and his brethren rest safely within a border that leaves them quite durable to regular collector play. Screecher also tweaked things somewhat. The ear flaps move more easily, the small hip skirts feel a bit less fragile, and all the joints feel tighter and stronger. Some, like the flaps on his forearms, were actually a bit too strong, and required a bit of prying to get them open the first time. After that, it's been fine. Unless you've got something against the Hearts of Steel Seeker design on a line art level, I'd highly recommend picking this guy up. He's a fine piece of transforming toy and one of the best third-party items I've had on my desk all year. Where the Awakening version was the prototype, Screecher is the polished package. If you don't care for his copious flat gray, stay tuned for his more colorful partners who are on their way in the coming months. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus. Did I mention that I'd love to see the Crow Battalion manifest as toys? Just, a 3-pack or something, with a bunch of track pieces. A lot of track pieces. I've been a good boy. I have!